Are you ready to create healthier, wealthier, and more beautiful spaces? My name is Naomi Findlay and welcome to The Reno Show. Each week, I'll be bringing you a value-packed episode of incredible room reveals, hands-on renovation tips, upcycling hacks, and so much more. I am passionate about renovating for life, and I can't wait to take you on this journey, creating spaces you can thrive in. Get ready for our best season yet.
Hello once again and welcome to this week's Property News Update. My special guest is Veronica Morgan from Good Deeds Property Buyers, and she will join me in just a moment. But here are the stories we're going to cover this week. You know, they don't know that they've got it so good until they lose it. Recycled swimming pools, America's most expensive, not so safe as houses, and Kenny sings up not a storm but a mansion. Back with those stories in just a moment.
Did you know you can save up to 70% on your staff costs by outsourcing the low-value, repeatable tasks so your team can focus on growing your business? Beepo is an outsourcing provider focused on the real estate industry. With an English-speaking, tertiary qualified and fully trained team in the Philippines, Beepo will give your business the boost it needs to start growing and returning value to you. For more information, visit beepo.com.au.
Welcome back and welcome to the show, Veronica Morgan from Good Deeds Property Buyers. And don't you look pretty in pink?
Oh, thank you, Kevin. Nice to see you too.
Well, I'm not in pink, but you know. But real men do wear pink. You know that, don't you?
They do, but most men do wear checks.
Yeah, well, that's true. And look at me, I'm right on song.
Yeah.
Hey, first story comes from City AM. They don't know they've got it so good. This is out of the UK. UK government is being urged to slash stamp duty to help boost home buyers and getting them into the market. But have a listen to this. The average buyer in England pays £2,300 when they pay their stamp duty to buy a property. And that's just about 4K in Australia. That's not too bad, I've got to tell you.
Luxury, but what is the average purchase price in the UK?
Oh, I don't know. God, have you done the research on that?
Because the thing is that I think it's a bit lower by the sounds of it than it is here. You know the most expensive state in Australia for stamp duty?
Is it New South Wales?
No, it's Victoria.
Victoria, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
They pay close to, I mean, look, it does vary because of the calculations. It's close to 6%.
Goodness.
So Victoria, I mean, New South Wales is around about 4%. I think Queensland's less than that. But yeah, nearly 6%. That's just shocking.
Yeah, I knew that I'd get on a rant on this story. So here we go. Stamp duty's got to be the biggest rip-off of all time because they do absolutely nothing for it.
No, I think land tax is a bigger rip-off, but that's...
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of arguments, there's a lot of push to change or restructure stamp duty here in Australia too because, that it's being a transactional tax and so therefore it's actually a barrier to transaction and certainly there's pressure for... downsizes, for instance, that's a big cost, when people are retiring and to downsize their home and facing with that, it could be up to $100,000 depending on where they are and what they're paying, what they're buying. It's a lot of money.
Oh, let's face it, it's dead money too. It's money for nothing. I wonder what the stamp duty's like in other parts of the world, like the US and places like that. Do you have any knowledge of that?
Not enough, unfortunately. I'm not familiar. I do know when I was doing quite a lot of research around before the last federal election and there was all that negative gearing argument, I was doing quite a lot of research around taxation on property around the world and there's quite a lot of variation. There's a theory about tax that a bad tax is one that changes people's behaviour. I think that's what economists believe, and certainly stamp duty is a tax that absolutely changes people's behaviour.
Yeah, and we should dispel any thoughts we might have about the government ever reducing it or cutting it out altogether because they're just not going to do that. So
there have been studies though to show that if you change, and I'm not necessarily advocating for this either, but if you change it from a transactional tax to a broad-based land tax, and so obviously that would be a much reduced land tax than what we have at the moment, that the government's coffers actually increase over time, and it does free up the transaction of property and more property trading. So, and that freeing up of stock can actually keep a lid on price growth as well. So there are quite a lot of studies and models that have been done that show that it could be, good for the government and the property market as well.
Yeah, I wonder how much of a barrier stamp duty is to people buying property.
Well, it's huge. I mean, you think about like a first home buyer, for instance, they've got to cough up their deposit, unless they're lucky enough to, after January 1, qualify for Scott Morrison's, government-funded insurance policy. They're going to have to come up with 10 or 20% plus mortgage insurance if they're actually coming up with less than 20%. And then generally speaking, the on-costs of purchasing a property, of which stamp duty is the largest component, is around 5%. So that's sort of, even if they are going to go with Scott Morrison's, lovely insurance policy, they've basically got to match their deposit with stamp duty.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, it's a big impediment, that's for sure. Hey, before we go to our next story, which is about swimming pools, and this is quite an ingenious story too, I want to tell you the Real Estate Talk is out tomorrow as normal. Get an offer before you list for sale. Now, this is a new website. I was actually quite staggered when I spoke to them about it, but you'll hear about it in tomorrow's show. There's action needed on smoke alarms. There's a looming time frame coming up. Finding stressed property, tenancy law, well and truly covered, and how you can supercharge your rental success. This is from a tenant's point of view. All that and more tomorrow in Real Estate Talk. It's out. Okay, my guest in Property News Update this week is Veronica Morgan, Good Deeds Property Buyers, and we're going to go to story number 2. This one comes from realestate.com.au. How ingenious is this? Recycled swimming pools. An accountant was searching around to see if he could afford. Only an accountant would do this one, I think. Was just searching around for an affordable swimming pool, and what did he got? He got one of those what do you call skip bins? A skip bin, and then lined it with fiberglass. But have a look at it. It looks fantastic.
It does. I actually have absolute laugh about this. I have seen one done in a shipping container as well. So maybe he was inspired by that. Who knows? Obviously a bigger pool in a shipping container. So this guy has sort of come up with the plunge pool version. I think it's absolutely fabulous, but I do love the fact that it refers to him, accountant. And, he just springs to mind. It's like the tight ass and Dad, why can't we have a proper pool like all our friends? It's just crazy.
Yeah, I know some accountants and they would love this story because it's just an absolute classic.
But at the same time, they're not normally synonymous with, you don't think of inventor and entrepreneur when you think of accountant. So he's sort of gone with the stereotypical, idea of what an accountant is, then blown the myth. But there's a line in the story that I just think is hilarious when they swim in the bin.
Yes. I was half tempted to make that the headline, but no.
It's great. I love it. Come over to my house and have a swim in the bin.
Have a swim in the bin, yeah. But you'd have to make sure it's pretty well watertight because it looked to me as if he's got it sort of either buried in the ground or it's, surrounded, like they've built up around it. So, quite ingenious.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
He might have struck on something there. It's good recycling. Hey, story number 3 comes from the urban developer. America's most expensive property, Californian mansion with a history of hosting Hollywood royalty, has hit the market for, brace yourself, US 225 million. In Australia, that's 327 million, I think I calculated, making it the most expensive public real estate listing in the USA's history. Wow, that's incredible. 327 million.
Well, that's what they're asking. Of course, whether they get it or not will be interesting.
Oh, you cynical person.
I'm a bit of a cynic. It's funny though, isn't it? I mean, that's the ultimate trophy home. I have the most expensive house in America.
Yeah, well, that's right.
And it's not even a waterfront. In Australia, you couldn't imagine really, the most expensive house not being a waterfront. It's, it's up there in the hills and it's got a bit of a distant city view. It's amazing what they'll pay for.
It is indeed. Australia's most expensive property sold recently, 140 million. Did you get to have a look at that one or put a buyer through that one?
Yeah, so that is basically an off the plan. It flies in the face of everything, doesn't it?
Yeah.
An off the plan penthouse apartment sells for more than any house has ever sold for in Australia, and 1,600 square metres.
Yeah.
That's bigger than a lot of blocks of land.
Well, it's over 3 stories too. It's a penthouse, 3-story penthouse. It's in Barangaroo, which is that new development down on Sydney Harbour. But, you know, the views would be absolutely spectacular. But, you know all the warnings we talk about buying off the plan. If you had 140 million to sink into a property, you'd probably take the punt, wouldn't you?
Well, I guess if you've got that much money to spend on an apartment, you're not really worrying about those sorts of things. And in fact, you could probably afford to rebuild the entire building, you know,
Well,
if
yes,
stuff's
you
falling
could.
apart.
Yes,
It's pretty phenomenal. But I think imagine being on that strata committee.
Do you think anyone who spent 140 million to buy a 3-level penthouse would actually go to a body corporate meeting?
No, but they'd have their minders there, wouldn't they?
They would,
I mean,
wouldn't
you
they?
can imagine the power broker that would have that sort of money and what their expectation in terms of from a strata management point of view, not that I've ever managed strata, but I can't imagine wanting to take it on even as a manager.
It'd be pretty scary stuff, wouldn't it? They'd probably just send their butler or something, wouldn't they? Or the chauffeur, I don't know.
Or their lawyers, who knows?
Yeah, their lawyers, exactly. Okay. Story number 3 was the one we just covered, so we're going to go to a commercial break. I just love working with you because you phase me right out.
You're on top of it.
Yeah, I'm right on top of this one. Hey, story number 4, which we'll bring you in just a moment, comes from the ABC News division. Not so safe as houses. And, well, I'm going to get Veronica's take on this one. We'll be back in just one moment.
Your business card is a vital selling tool and a constant visual reminder of who you are, what you do, and more importantly, how you can be contacted. Introducing our new Velvet business cards, featuring a luxurious premium laminate that has a velvet texture and is soft to the touch. Printed on a resilient 450 GSM card, these cards can be printed with a range of spot gloss and foiling options to give your office that prestigious look.
Yeah, near and dear to your heart, this one, Veronica Morgan from
I know.
ABC
Got me fired up.
News. Yes, not so safe as houses, but, you got to be careful who you take advice from.
You do. So many people fall for the lines and the spruikers, and this story is actually full of just terrible, avoidable, tragic outcomes.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I did an interview on Real Estate Talk, I think it was last week, and I got caned for it because it was. I actually spoke to an agent in Sydney who was saying, well, look, if you're going to buy off the plan, just make sure, or if you're going to buy an apartment, it was all about the building defects. If you're going to buy an apartment, just do your due diligence. Doesn't mean you shouldn't buy them. So many people look at this as a black and white issue, and really we've got to take responsibility for our own actions. We can't be protected all the time. So if you fall for these schemes, well, more fool you, because there's so much information out there to tell you shouldn't do it.
Look, I absolutely agree. It's very complicated. Look, I wrote an article recently, that's actually on Home Buyer Academy website, which is basically
plug.
10,
nice
there's a plug, you like that, 10
plug,
reasons, not to buy off the plan. I mean, honestly, I could write a book on why not to buy off the plan.
But it doesn't mean people shouldn't do it.
Well, the thing is that they need to fully understand the risks, and they're not. And the defects is only one part of it. It's a huge part of it. And it's suddenly, we are in the last, year, been exposed to so much more of it. And this has been looming and building for a long time. And now it's only starting to people are becoming aware of it. So that's only one part of it, though. The thing is that, and in our business, for instance, when Mascot Towers started sinking, we suddenly thought we'd been doing additional due diligence for buildings 10 years and younger, and we don't buy off the plan, right? So this is looking at established buildings that have been standing for a long time. We do an additional layer of due diligence. We've extended that now to older buildings, up 15 years and probably now to 20, to be honest. Now, when you say do your due diligence, I love that. It's this sort of throwaway line, do your due diligence. The thing is, it's really difficult to do this due diligence. This information is not readily and easily available. And even then, for us who are professionals in this, how do you know where to go, what to ask, how to interpret all these Phoenix companies? There's just a minefield of information that is there, but how do you actually work out what is important and what isn't? And people get overloaded and then they just think, and they don't do it at all. Or they think that, I just checked the builder, and if the builder's still trading, it's fine. It's just not
obviously
fine.
that is what we used to say, and that was a part of the due diligence too, but as you said, and rightly so, it goes so much deeper now. It makes me wonder if there's an opportunity for someone to develop a business around being able to research these, knowing what it is, because it is a niche market. It's an area that you really have to know what you're doing. And if you're focused on it, I think it could be a really good business model because, let's face it, people have still got to buy, not so much off the plan, but they've certainly got to buy new units. Otherwise, developers will just stop making them, and then we'll be in all sorts of mess. So,
can I do another little plug?
Yeah.
So, the Elephant in the Room podcast, we recently, only a couple of episodes ago, interviewed the CEO of Frasers Australia. So his name is Rod Ferring, I think, off the top of my head. And we really wanted to quiz him as one of the big players. How do they look at all this defects issue? What are they doing about it? How do they see the industry moving, et cetera, et cetera? Because the thing is that, as you say, we need housing. Right? We need this stuff to be built. We need it. We need a better regulatory environment so that we can trust what's being built. And that's all one half of it. The other half of it is that the stats are overwhelming that people lose money when they buy off the plan. It's overwhelming that the chances of you losing money are a hell of a lot higher than they are of you making money, certainly within the first decade of owning that property. And that's something that is just not talked about enough, and it's quite difficult to get a handle of those stats because the big data houses such as APM or CoreLogic, they can't separate new and existing apartments from the data, or first-time sale versus subsequent resale. So there are only sort of fairly scattered and irregular sort of research that's been done, but those that have been done, those studies that have been done, show overwhelmingly the risks are huge of actually losing money early on, and particularly for first home buyers and investors. So an investor buying an investment that loses money, that's insane. And a first home buyer is buying their first property because they want a solid rung on the ladder. Well, that's insane too if it's going to lose money, because if they need to upgrade into a home, that opportunity, that door's being closed to them. So it's really serious stuff.
It is. Thank you. That was a wonderful insight.
I've got to add one thing.
Yeah.
I found on Twitter this new Twitter handle called Spruker Watch. Find it, and I hope they're anonymous. I don't know who's behind it, but they are putting out some very, very well-researched articles and spotlighting on spruikers. And they've only just started, so I just get on there, Spruker Watch on Twitter. Read these articles.
Spruker Watch, SPRUKER, WATCH?
Yes.
Or SP, how do you spell it?
SPRUIKER.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's the correct way to spell it. Okay, all right. Spruker Watch, that's on Twitter, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll check that out as soon as we get off air. Hey, let's go to our last story from Top 10 Real Estate Deals. I love this website. You get some great stories. But this one was unusual because Kenny Rogers, I didn't realise, while he was singing up a storm, was building mansions and then flipping them. He was a flipper. How good's that?
What a side hustle. But not just any old property, mansions. And they're pretty amazing.
We're talking about like $10 and $15 million mansions.
Oh, I wonder how long each project took him and how hands-on he was.
Yeah, well, he must have had a love of it. I mean, he's still alive, isn't he?
Oh, I couldn't tell you.
My research said that he was, but, sometimes you just don't know when you Google this stuff. But Anyway, if he's not, rest in peace. And but he apparently did some very good deals along the way. So he must have had a team of people, surely.
Oh, well, you couldn't manage. You couldn't renovate an apartment on your own. You know, you need a team. But yeah, it's quite phenomenal, isn't it? I love the fact that there's people that do have passion for property all across the spectrum. You know, a lot of people dream about becoming a country music star, but other people dream about becoming a property flipper.
Yeah, I've met a lot of people over the years who I would never thought would be into property, but you've only really got to go to a barbecue and tell someone that you're a real estate agent or you do real estate media or something, and they're all, you know, everyone loves it. Whether it's just an Australian thing, I don't know.
Oh, well, look at, you know, The Block. I mean, the ratings of that show, that people sit there and gawk at people under pressure trying to renovate these rooms. But I find it, you know, talk about the barbecue, yes, everyone's got an opinion about property, but the amount of people that love property, and in fact the amount of people that become buyer's agents because they love property, it's sort of, on one hand, well, it's actually alarming quite often because, you know, they might love it, but they don't necessarily understand it. But, you know, there's an enormous amount of people that want to get into property purely because it's a passion project. Yeah,
and you know, it's an interesting subject, that one, and it used to fascinate me when I had our agencies and we'd be recruiting people, and they would come in wanting a salesperson's position, and they'd say, oh, look, I just love property. I know I'm going to be really good at it. And I'd have to say to them, well, look, it's got nothing to do with the property. Like, you may love property, but it's all about people. You know,
Absolutely.
The people move in and out of the houses. The properties just stay there. They're properties, you know. You don't have to love them.
Yes.
It's all about getting on with people.
Yeah, and maybe, you know, if you love property, you should be a renovator. Not a sales or a buyer's agent.
You should be a builder, maybe. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, go and be a builder. But unfortunately, a lot of the people who apply for jobs in real estate because they love real estate are sort of, you know, maybe they've come out of a teaching job or something like that, and they're looking for this as a wind-down career. There's another story. It is not a wind-down career. It's a full-on thing.
God, no. In fact, I actually had someone approach me recently who said that they were in a really stressful job, and so they thought being a buyer's agent would be really pleasant. I was like, okay, I don't think it's the industry for you.
Come and do work experience for a week, and we'll see how you feel at the end of the week. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Hey, Veronica Morgan, it's great talking to you, my friend. You want to get another plug in there for your Elephant in the Room podcast, for Good Deeds Property Buyers, whatever it is you want?
Oh, thank you very much. Well, Good Deeds Property Buyers is really just helping people buy within Sydney's 10K radius of the CBD. And if you want to buy without regrets, you need to look us up. And the elephant in the room, if you want to sort of find out really what I'm about and philosophy around property, then start there. Go on the Elephant in the Room podcast, because it's not just about me and my philosophies, really. It's about educating buyers, and so that we all make better decisions. And I have learnt in the 18 months we've been doing that, I can't bang on enough about how much I've learned in that whole exercise. It's been amazing.
It's like going to university. All the shows that I've done over the decade or so, it's just been like going to university. Talk to some wonderful people. Hey, we're going to get some of your videos back on Property TV too. If you haven't been watching them, Veronica is, well, she was up until a week or so ago, a regular guest on Property TV. But she's setting up her studio. She'll be back again, I promise you, because people love them. We get so much feedback from them.
Oh, great. Well, I've got a new series, and it's called Flawed Thinking.
Oh, okay.
So it's all the things that we think is really rational, but we actually, if we follow these sort of flawed thinking paths, we do end up making silly decisions around property, and we can't afford to. It's such an expensive and monumental decision to buy a property. So we want to get everyone thinking a bit clearer.
So what's it called? Flawed
Thinking.
Flawed Thinking. Okay, well, watch out for that. It'll be on Property TV, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. If we can get Veronica.
Very soon. And I've got 90 that I've already written, so there's going to be a huge amount.
Yeah, well, there you go. Hey, Veronica Morgan, great talking to you. Thank you so much for your time. We look forward to catching up with you again real soon. And watch out for Veronica Morgan on propertytv.io. Thanks, Veronica.
Thanks, Kevin.
I'm Kevin Turner. Watch out for Real Estate Talk. It is out tomorrow, and don't forget Kevin Brogan will be joining me later today as we'll bring you auction update, and we'll have a look at the auctions around Australia coming up this week. I'm Kevin Turner. See you next time.